Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Howdy y'all, Ray Laughlin here. We're on the Wise Ones today on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Before I start the show, I'll give you a real quick rundown on me. I'm a writer, author of several books. I speak a lot. I also publish books for people. I have almost 50 books I've done for other people. I'm a TV show host. We do 3 shows here every Thursday on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. The first one is in the book writing, publishing business. We just finished one literally 20 minutes ago. And my next show is on top of the hour, and it's called Talking Heads. And it's usually a presentation on something dealing with some aspect of health and wellness. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms. But the cause could be getting worse. So I look at those things and try to tell people, this is what degrades it, this is what helps it, and that's the information I put out. So the next hour, when things come up, I'm going to be talking about the hallmarks of health and some really nice information to know about what's happening aging at the cellular level in your body. Now we're getting into the wise ones. Melissa Pickett, I met literally a month ago, maybe not quite that long ago, and she invited me to participate in a BNI event here in the Pearland area near Houston, Texas. And when I was talking to her, I got to learn that she was an RN and she became what's called a legal nurse consultant, which I've never heard of before. But as she was describing her job and what she does, I said, that sounds like a really fascinating topic to talk about. So Melissa, please join me up here on stage.
Hi, thanks, Red, for having me.
Melissa, you've been a registered nurse forever. How did you get into the nursing field? What was the prompt?
I always wanted to explore that. And then it was actually my second career. When my daughter went to kindergarten, I decided it was time that I do something that I could make sure that me and my family was taken care of as I matured, in life and being the mom and all of that. And I was a single mom for quite some time. So it gave me the support that I needed to help others and, to make it feel like it was worthy of being away from my children. So that's kind of how my journey started.
One of the women who used to work with me at Halliburton, she was a chemist, and for whatever reason, she wanted to be a nurse, and she did. I had the same thing happen when I worked at Memorex. One of the QC inspectors that was working with me, she wanted to become a nurse, and she did. So it's one of those things that I guess it happens sometimes early in life, and sometimes it happens later in life. But it's a very difficult field to get into. Tell us a little bit about your experience in learning what was required and how you did it.
Yeah, so I had a bachelor's in social work that I got right after high school and before I got married. I actually worked for a veterinary office growing up. So that's kind of where my passion started, was helping animals and that, in their healthcare journey with the owners. And I was always drawn to it. Life kept circling me back to it. So when I started looking at how I could make this work as a mom of 3 and very active kids, I found I was in Michigan living at the time. There's a community college there that has a really wonderful program called Monroe Community College. And that was where I went. It's very highly rated. It produces amazing nurses, and it's a very difficult program to get into. And I kind of decided, well, if I can get in there and I can survive nursing school, I think I'm going to be a pretty good nurse. So Doing that program really opened my eyes to a lot of things. I became a nursing extern after my first year. So I got a lot of experience hands-on right away in the hospital that was close by. And once I graduated, was able to get into that system and work on the cardiac step-down unit, which is a pretty intense unit there, kind of mirroring and supporting the intensive care unit there. So that was kind of how my journey began. I decided that, I wasn't going to take things slow. I wanted to keep challenging myself and getting the best out of the career that I could, and giving back in the best way.
And how long were you a registered nurse?
So I've been a registered nurse for over 14 years.
Okay. And in the process, this is probably a question you've never been asked, but it's something that's come up recently in another part of my life. Have you ever seen any of your patients who came in, they were really in extremely poor health, almost ready to die, and miraculously they recovered?
I've seen some great reactions to treatments, and along the way, I worked for an oncology nurse navigation team for the pancreatic surgeon at Henry Ford in Michigan, and we saw a lot of difficult cases there. So most definitely, I saw just that connection and how sometimes, thankfully things can go a lot better than we anticipate they go for a variety of reasons. And then when I got here in Houston about 3 years ago, I worked for the malignant hematology team. So like leukemia, lymphoma, multiple myeloma. So again, really sick people, and just being able to support them and show the other pieces of healthcare that truly support those decisions and how our body can react and kind of surpass what's expected at times. So yeah.
From a miraculous perspective, it's without treatment. It just happens. And so I know with treatments, in fact, I've been going to my doctors here lately. I got a bunch of them, and I've been asking them, what do you know about AI and diagnostics? And I was at my ophthalmologist yesterday, and he says, yeah, they're kind of coming in, but they're not quite there yet. But I was with another doctor earlier, and he says, yeah, they're really starting to push that. So are you seeing more of a push that with your business, that AI is helping in the diagnostic area?
It definitely can help. I think it's a rough spot, because we don't want to assume that just because it's coming from AI where it's giving us information, that it actually has all the appropriate information, even though it can search anywhere, right? It's kind of like, in my opinion right now, it's like Google MD, right? People will go to Google and they can find and support anything. That if you're not careful with AI, it can be exactly the same thing. There's bots and things that you can train to help to guide that a little bit better. So I would say yes, in some cases that is definitely growing, but I think it still needs to be heavily monitored. It's not something you can just say, yeah, sure, this is for sure, better than what the medical professionals are telling you, because you're going to want someone to interpret that to make sure things are being truly looked at. And, something I'm finding a lot too is sometimes it's the way we process what we're reading and the critical thinking that comes with that. And being a nurse, I know that if I wouldn't have taken the time and thought through something, it really can change the outcome of many situations. So knowing how to process and to anticipate and understand fully, those are still things that are super crucial when it comes to healthcare and AI, in my opinion.
I think the biggest mistake people make with AI is they don't know how to ask the right question. How you ask the question, how detailed you are, allows AI to give you the specific answer you're looking for. But they don't always speak the same, even though it's English.
Correct.
It's not the same language, and you almost have to go back 3, 4, 5, 6 times and tweak the question. I do a lot of research, and I get a lot of this AI assisted deal. Okay, that's not what I want. Okay. In human bodies, not just I'm looking at cellular communications, and I was doing that earlier today. And all of a sudden, I ended up in the telephone world, not in the cellular body in the human body. And so it's how you ask the question is super critical with AI.
Yeah, it's kind of that basic, what I'm trying to remember where I always heard it, but you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out, right? Like you can't feed it just mediocrity and expect for the expertise to come through. So yeah, that's kind of where the training and asking the right questions definitely becomes a big issue. So that's where I would really caution, because, you know, when you're talking like an overview, you have to really look at, you know, as society, we have such a range of the way that people understand, and even just sitting next to a patient and a family and explaining a diagnosis or a treatment or, you know, a disease, it varies so much on who I'm talking to, right? I very rarely have the exact same conversation, because we're human and everything, you know, affects how that is absorbed and what you're ready to hear.
Okay, so you're RN for a number of years. You
Mhm.
transition into a legal nurse consultant. First, before
Yep.
we go further into that, tell me, what is the definition of a legal nurse consultant?
So in short form, a legal nurse consultant is here to assist attorneys with understanding medical records. That's a very generalized description. So kind of what I do is they'll send me medical records, I read them over, and then I send them back different types of reports depending on what they're looking for, and can use evidence-based practice, my experience, my knowledge, and not just interpret what's written in front of me, but what's missing, maybe what they need to request that's not received yet, or if there was lax in care, red flags, you know, that happened during the situation. I can also help connect attorneys and the legal teams with expert witnesses to kind of help support that so further down the case. So I like to tell them is, you know, you get into discovery and later phases, and a lot of this stuff comes out that maybe you didn't know in the beginning. So it's really important to talk to a legal nurse consultant when you have these records, so that we can assist, because, you know, doctors are sometimes used, but they're not in the chart like we are. They don't necessarily know appropriate nursing procedure and policy, because that's not what we're expecting of them, right? We're expecting them to come in and, you know, take care of the patient, and, you know, the nurse is there to kind of do everything else, to fill in the blanks, to give the medications, to make sure everything's running smoothly. So I do the same thing now for attorneys that I did for doctors, right? Making sure that their cases, they have the best information, and can proceed with, you know, whatever goals they have after that based on that information to best serve their client. And then sometimes it helps to have me on the team to talk to the families about what's been going on, or the client in particular, and what happened in their case and what to expect moving forward. So all those things are a huge benefit.
Have you ever been asked to be an expert witness during your legal nurse consulting business?
Yeah, so I've done a few expert reports, but I have not been in a you know, asked to testify at this time. But I have a lot of my fellow colleagues that I work with that have. So if I need to connect people with others, I have that capacity. I belong to a national LNC network that's growing, and, you know, we're just trying to make that a safe place for people to connect, and also increase your resources, right, at a quick hand, so that, you know, we can support each other, because there's a lot of work out there, as we know. You know, the legal system's a busy place. So if we can support that, and support how healthcare is morphing into something more positive than what it is right now, that, to me, that's a huge success.
Tell me about the process you went through from being an RN to say, I'd like to get into this legal nurse consulting. And then how did that actually happen?
Sure. Well, it's something I've been thinking about doing on the side for quite some time. Several of the nurses I've worked with, we've talked about it, just trying to do something different. You know, we work a lot of overtime when we're working the units, and it gets exhausting, and it's not always feasible with our families. So this is something that I considered doing on the side for some time, and it just never really happened. And then I ran into a mentorship program that I really sparked my interest. And I had like I said, I was working as an oncology nurse navigator here in Houston, and it was time for a change. I was hitting those walls that we hit as nurses in the position. Just not the support of the team wasn't really aligning with where I was wanting to go. And, you know, it truly became apparent that at this time in my life, I needed to make a bigger change. So My children currently still live in the Michigan area, and I love being closer to the water, and I like being in the warmer weather. So I do really enjoy being here in Houston. So it's kind of a culmination of all of that. How am I going to continue to be a nurse? How am I going to be, supporting and giving back, and still have time to travel and see my children and, enjoy life. So that's kind of what pushed me, is I just wanted something different for myself, but I didn't want to completely giving up helping, doing all the things I was doing as a nurse, because it is a part of you when you're helping people and showing up, because a lot of the work's not easy. A lot of it is, a lot to deal with when you're leaving, but it can be very rewarding too. And giving all of that up is something that's very difficult. So this really encompasses a lot, because not only can I help these families, but I'm educating lots of people and the importance of it, including other nurses, and how they can possibly, help down the road, because they can help me on the side, look at a case or be an expert witness, for something different. So I'm really excited at what's to come with all of that.
Okay, the transition from being an RN, where you work for somebody, an organization, a hospital, whatever,
Yeah.
versus being an entrepreneur. Now you
Yep.
have everything. You're responsible for income, advertising, new clients, marketing. All that stuff comes under that title of you're the business owner. That's what you're doing. You're a consultant. How did that work out initially, and what if you learned from that you could pass on to other people thinking about maybe making a similar change?
Yeah. First thing is, don't try to do it completely alone, right? Like you're going to get lost and you're going to get overwhelmed, and that's why you're going to give up. You have to find some sort of a support team, whatever that looks like. For me, it's my BNI chapter that I got involved with. I have a wonderful group of people that are helping me to build a better system, to helping me to grow, so that as I grow, I can offload some of those things that I don't need to do for myself. But it's taken a lot of mindset work. It's taken a lot of reflection and adjustment, because again, it's not a W-2 position. It's not something that I can measure like I've always measured as a nurse. Success can be simply making connections for the week and planting those seeds and educating. That doesn't necessarily result in a paycheck that week, but it doesn't mean it's not essential in order to grow forward. Getting more comfortable about talking about things, and being on different podcasts, and getting to be here on your show, getting my name out there, so that when someone sees that, they're like, oh, I've heard of her before. She posts a lot of stuff. I think I need to talk to her, right? Or in its quality, it's not showing up as somebody that you're not. And if you're going to go after a dream, I think you got to go into it all in, but you got to remember that nobody builds anything completely alone. You may be responsible for a lot, but you have to have people there to support you along the way, because that's where success comes, is from the pivoting and from the adjustment to that. But I also have a huge group of nurses that I'm working with that mentorship program. And that helps, because if I have to talk to somebody about something, or, sometimes it's just talking the case through, or my advertising, or how's this working for you? So you have that, you don't lose sight of the team approach that you had when you were working the bedside. That was something I was a little nervous about as well, because as nurses, I think, again, we bond pretty closely with those that we work with, because we're in under stressful situations and all of that. And when you walk away from that, it can feel like you're really abandoning a piece of yourself. And with having the mentorship program and my friends and colleagues that I've really learned to appreciate in a much different way, and they're all over the United States, so it's a little bit different, but that's okay, because there's always somebody available for me if I need them, and I'm there for them too.
Melissa, we're going to go to a station break, a commercial break here very shortly. But before we do that, what percentage do you think of the attorneys' offices here in the area that you're dealing with actually have a licensed nurse consultant at their disposal?
I think it's pretty low, to be honest with you. And some of them are relying on AI, and that's a really tough situation to be in. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, not just here in the area, but I live, but all across the United States, because they don't even realize the value that is there. Because, as business workers, we get kind of caught up in how things are going, and it's difficult to pivot and change sometimes because it's scary. We don't want to take stepwards back, but there's a lot of us out there. If I'm not someone that connects with you, I can connect you with someone else. I can give you some feedback and, some direction, because I ideally want to work with someone that wants to work with me too, right? Like that's what's going to be the most productive. But yeah, so there's a huge need. There is.
Okay, we come back from the break. I want to continue on that same thing because you mentioned offices or attorney offices around the country. And I think that's with the digital world today and everything can be sent back and forth so easily. You could be here in Houston, but working with somebody in a small town in North Texas. So let's go to a commercial break and we'll come back and continue.
Sounds great. Thanks.
What if one simple skill could change the way you connect with the world? What if listening could open doors to deeper relationships, stronger businesses, and a better you? Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the Listening Mentor, brings you USA Global TV and Radio, a space where voices are heard, ideas are shared, and global communities thrive. Through the elevated listeners' courses and books, you'll master the power of listening, set boundaries with confidence, and transform conversations into opportunities. Join us. Listen, learn, elevate. Whether you're a leader, a coach, a business owner, or someone seeking stronger connections, your journey starts today. Subscribe, learn, and transform today.
Howdy, Red Laughlin here. We're on the Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And my guest today is Melissa Pickett. She is a licensed nurse consultant, and we're talking about what a licensed nurse consultant can do. And just before the break, we're talking about attorneys' offices and what percentage actually have access to them or even know about them. And she was saying it's very little, but with the digital world, you could be working with somebody in Amarillo, Texas, which is quite a ways away from here because everything is digital. But what's the farthest client you've had so far?
I've had some conversations with several attorneys in New York because I can really work with anybody across the United States. I don't need to be licensed in your state as a registered nurse to review those records, which makes me available to really everyone, which is great, right? Like we can connect and find the right people to work with, because I'm not saying an LNC needs to be on absolutely every case, because there's some cases that are pretty cut and dry. But I know there's a lot of them out there that could really utilize them and that are not. And it's really important to know that we're available and the things that we can do. And another thing I like to really let attorneys know is, nurses, we work with a lot of different types of doctors. So we're used to kind of morphing some of the things that we do, right? Just because I give you a report and these are my examples, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to make that a little bit more user-friendly for you, because that's kind of what we've done over our path is, make it easier for people to understand things. So just know that if you're running into something like that, it's great to have a conversation, because we're pretty happy to make sure you're understanding, because that's the whole goal, right? Makes things easier, make things more simple, but give you as much of the information up front as we can.
Well, I've noticed, I think it's pretty true that doctors have a legal and a moral obligation to treat a problem when they're aware of it. But sometimes that goes down the path of, surgery or prescriptions or some other treatment. Sometimes you may have a naturalistic, holistic option. Mm-hmm. And when I present something to a doctor, I says, I'd like to try this. I haven't found any yet that say, okay, let's do it for 3 months, 6 months, and we'll remeasure everything and see. I found them to be pretty open with regard to that. Have you seen similar things?
Yeah, I mean, because we have our standards of care and, things that we have to follow based on where we work, right? There's policies to protect you as the patient. So we still have to follow that and make sure that you have the education. But especially as a nurse, and working in oncology, especially, I've seen it a lot. Patients will want to do different things, and, supporting that and knowing what's best for the patient and kind of, looking through that is really where we should be, right? Because we have a right to choose. But we also have the duty to inform and the duty to monitor and all of that. So it is a balance for sure. But as the changes occur, with healthcare, it's good to see a little bit more of the holistic approach coming, so that there feels like there's less pressure from the patient to kind of get what they want. And I mean that in the best way, because I know in the past, people would really feel like, you're not heard and you're kind of pushed to do these other decisions. But, as we learn more and can get that support, because we have to kind of go based on those guidelines when you're working for a different facility, right? Like whatever their guidelines are, we have to follow those as well, because that's what we're instructed and taught to do. So yeah, the pieces of the holistic definitely can be incorporated well, but the education and all of that needs to be there as well. And then, follow through, because that's where anything gets really monitored and evaluated, is in that follow through. Is there changes or not?
Okay. I provide a lot of information, a lot of content on health and wellness, but I'm very clear about, in my books and in my presentations, that this is for awareness and education. And you just mentioned education a second ago. And so when I'm looking at that, can a nurse give medical advice, or is that something that's forbidden?
So we can explain, but I can't give medical advice because I'm not truly prescribing. So I can go back and, if a doctor's given a diagnosis and a treatment plan, then I can give them further information with regards to that. But to truly say, without the doctor's evaluation, X, Y, and Z is what the diagnosis or treatment should be, I can't do that, because I'm not licensed to provide that initial information. It doesn't mean I don't understand it, and it doesn't mean I don't see it, because with working with it, obviously we know it's actually the opposite. So I like to say I'm kind of like just like the easy button, right? You just push on me, and then I can help you understand and kind of think and process through, right? Because that's what it all comes down to, is we all have to make a choice. Are we going to do this, or are we going to do that? And I can't choose for the patient at all, but I can make sure that they have all the information that they need to make that decision.
Okay, so when you're looking at something and the doctor prescribes 50 milligrams of this for a particular ailment, and then you write your report and say, well, the industry standard is 20, not 50. All you're doing is, you're not saying it's wrong. You're saying this is what the standard is. And then it's up to whoever down the road, as an expert witness, says, well, in certain cases, a 50 is appropriate, but that's out of your hands. You're there to be a very objective person, looking at the data and saying, this is what I see.
Yeah. And it's, that's where I can be on any side of the case too, right? Because I'm looking at the facts and the truth and giving them valid information from that. I'm not swaying one way or the other, because it's pretty black and white a lot of the times, right? Like, this is the treatment, these are the things that should have followed, or this is where things kind of went the wrong way, and then you had this cascade of things that didn't go right after, and finding that quickly. So those make the biggest differences, because, and we do know, like, yeah, for example, on the medication, maybe 20 is normal, but I'm also one that would be administering medications to people if they're in the hospital, or if they're coming to the doctor's office, making sure the prescriptions are right. So if there's a reason for it to be higher, I'm going to know what that typically should be to also look for that, right? To help the doctors in supporting that. So yes, the expert witness can give the further detail, but a lot of nurses are still going to know based on our knowledge and experience, right?
Okay, as a legal nurse consultant, your primary interest is in helping attorneys, but you also can help the client, the patients. So that gives you a lot more room for what you're doing to help people.
It does. And I honestly, in the last couple of months, it's really changed my perspective because I was a little nervous about pulling away from bedside nursing just because, again, am I not going to be giving back like I was initially? And now I feel this just sense of power that I can have in the education and helping healthcare to realign to being, there for the patient and doing the right thing. A conversation I had with a different attorney yesterday, and I told her, I said, I don't want my kids to have to worry that I'm not getting the right care as I get older, right? Like, I want them to know if I can change anything in healthcare, that's what I want to change, is that we can be more reliable on the appropriate policy and procedures are followed, and all these other hospitals have them in place so that you're getting treated appropriately, and there's less of that. So I do work directly with the attorney, but I don't feel that the attorney is really the hugest benefit from my job. I still feel that giving back is supporting the healthcare industry in general, getting nursing back to kind of where I was proud to be a nurse when I first started, because there's a lot of things that have happened over the last few years that it makes us feel a lot differently, especially me personally, about the field and about where I was at in my different jobs. And being able to be a voice with that and to educate and to show the strength in a different way has been really empowering recently. And I really look forward to sharing that more with nurses and attorneys, because knowing that I'm not there to do anything else but to really show what the facts are and why this didn't go right so that we can make less of those errors.
Okay. The area of life care assistance is one of the ones I saw on your website. That's one of the things that you offer as a service. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we work with making sure that throughout their life, the care has been appropriate. So if I'm looking at something and maybe it's after an accident and that they're going to need sustaining things moving forward, I can help to figure out what that is, right? So when they're going to ask for certain compensation, or what would be expected and how is this going to affect them moving forward, I can help to identify some of those things, so that it's not just the time of injury. And it can be other things, but that's probably the easiest for someone to understand, but making sure they're getting what they need, to move forward.
Okay, 'cause sometimes you talk to a professional, whether it's a doctor, attorney, and they have their own interest, and that's what they know. And sometimes there are other things that, well, yeah, that's an option, but they don't tell you that up front. So it sounds like you
Right.
kind of have that sweet spot where you're aware of all of these things, but just like you're providing reports to attorneys, it's objective. This
Yes.
is what it is. It's just a fact.
Yes.
That's what
Yeah.
it is.
It's kind of the case management of it, right? People are really familiar with that term, but nurses do have a lot of input with how that happens, when a patient's like leaving a hospital from even just a knee surgery, right? Like things are going to need at home, and to make sure that they're going to have those so that they're safe when they're healing.
When new prescriptions come out, we have drugs coming out all the time. How do you keep yourself aware of what's on the market? How is it being used, on schedule, whatever the schedule is, and then whether they go off? There's a terminology when you use it, not in an intended purpose. Ivermectin, for instance, there's a lot of drugs that are being used off purpose for whatever reason. I don't know the terminology, but how do you keep yourself educated?
Yeah, so I usually call it off-label. I don't know if everybody uses that term, but kind of like off-label uses. Yeah, as to keep my license, I still have to do continuing education. So based on what I want to stay interested in with my experience, and that's what makes us so unique as nurses, right? We have this vast experience because there's not one of us out there that's an expert in everything. We have our expertise and our experience that we rely on. So if I don't know, I know someone that's something a little bit more specific about. So then I can utilize what resources they're using as well. They'll share those with us. So, it has to kind of come from your drive and again, keeping myself educated so that I can serve the population that I'm, requesting to serve. And I need to be able to communicate and go over that. So that way, as I grow in the field as an LNC, I can still utilize the ethics as an RN and, be able to jump back in if I ever wanted to or needed to and help people on whatever level.
Okay, you name your company Peaceful Views Consulting. How did that happen?
Yeah. So it's actually very interesting. I am people call me solar powered. I love to be outside. I love to be by the water. I love nature. So for me, I wanted a business that was going to reflect who I was as a person. So for me, it's about me bringing the peace in the waves of chaos in life. So it's not just the peaceful views where I'm enjoying the sunset, but there's a lot of chaos going on and things when people are having to take medical cases to an attorney. And if I can be that calm voice, that calm, reassuring person, that's kind of where it all came from.
So you're looking at the peaceful view and allowing others to share in that, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there something that we should have covered today that we didn't?
I think we did a good job of going over most of that, but I would really like to just not only thank you for having me on the show, but having the opportunity to try to educate people a little bit more on how a legal nurse consultant can really make a difference in all levels of the case, and how we can step in and really utilize our knowledge and experience. Because when I'm looking at a case, I can a lot of times feel like I'm standing right next to that bed, that whatever's happening, and evaluating how this should have went down and, what was charted, what was not, and why is this there and what's not. But it's also about showing that sometimes everything was done okay. It was done the way it should have been. And, we don't always get a positive result out of things. And a lot of times we do the best we can. We're human, right? And we're people as caregivers and we're people as patients. So all of that involved is having those tough conversations. And as nurses, that's something we do every day. So to have us on your team truly elevates that service, but also gives a lot more compassion to everyone involved.
How do people get in touch with you?
So you can reach me at my website. You can send me an email. I have those listed. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. I try to post some content with education there. So if you, and there's my number too, so call or text me, and happy to go over anything and send out some of my sample work to those of you that just kind of want to see what it is that I do that's maybe a little different than what the paralegals do. So just reach out and connect with me.
Okay, for our audio audience, Peaceful, 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 Views with a S, VIEWS, Consulting, CONSULTING.com. So Peaceful Views Consulting will reach Melissa. Melissa, thank you so very much for your time today. I really appreciate your attendance. I appreciate your help in other things earlier than today with regard to BNI and other things. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too, Red. Thanks.
Okay, take care, Melissa, and we'll catch you later. We're about 1 minute left in this particular show today on the Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. My next show is called Talking Heads. I'll be talking today about the hallmarks of health. There's about 12 of them that are listed, but we're looking at health not from the whole body perspective, which most people think about. We're talking about health literally at the cellular level, the integrity of the cell structure, the communications of the cell down various paths in the body so that it's getting feedback. How does it adapt? How does it survive? What degrades the cellular integrity of its function? What helps it support it better? And so as we age, all these things are coming about. And from my perspective, I'm looking at longevity. I'm looking at aging, age-related diseases. What can we do? What really makes sense? So from an education and awareness perspective, that's what my focus is. So today on the hallmarks of health, I'll be going into that level of detail. Please join me, and we'll catch you next week. Brad O'Loughlin signing off. Bye now.
In a world craving connection, one platform dared to dream bigger. USA Global TV and Radio, a beacon for global voices, authentic storytelling, and elevated listening. Led by visionary Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the journey from a spark to a global force is now captured in one inspiring book. Honored with YouTube's Silver Creator Award for surpassing 100,000 subscribers. Discover the evolution, the challenges, the triumphs, and the unstoppable spirit that created a global movement. Executive producer Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang. Creative director Paul Garcia. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Now an Amazon #1 new release in paperback and ebook. Broadcasting Brilliance, the evolution of USA Global TV and Radio, is inspiring readers around the world. Join the movement that's redefining global media one story at a time.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by executive producer and director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.